What's up, guys? Welcome back to Say Mojo Homestead on this beautiful, sunshiny, warm spring day. I am loving it out here. Bees are buzzing, flowers are budding, and the garden, I guess, is growing. Let's hope anyway. I wanted to do just a quick video on soil samples and how to read a soil sample result chart when you get it back, because a lot of people just look at a certain 3 numbers. You can probably guess what those are, but there's so much more information in that thing that is very valuable if you're doing a soil sample, especially for a garden. So let's jump right in. We did our soil sample a couple of weeks ago and got it back. Was pleasantly surprised at what it showed. Didn't really need to do a lot of stuff. They recommended something that I'm not going to do because it's really not that necessary. What they recommended was something that would basically just bring the phosphate level down because that was a little bit high. Here is our soil sample. So those top 4 lines are going to be your macro nutrients. Now, ours are showing up a little bit high, but I'm not concerned about that because it is in our garden and they're excessive feeders. And most of your garden plants are excessive feeders. But let's talk about macro ingredients. The 4 that are showing up here are phosphate, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. Now, there are 9 total, nitrogen being one of those. This particular test does not test for the levels of nitrogen in your soil. Basically, what your macronutrients are the main nutrients that plants have to have in order to live. And so those are your key, most important nutrients in the soil. These are the ones that most of your mainstream commercial fertilizers are going to be adding into the soil. But it's important that you don't just focus on those. Those are very important, but what is equally important are all these other numbers down below. So these are your micro ingredients, and they are what really determines how healthy your plants are going to be. Now, they can grow if you've got high levels of nitrogen, high levels of phosphate. They'll perform well, but if that's all you got in there, you basically have a plant that's surviving, not thriving. So you want to make sure those micro levels are at a good range as well. It's kind of like food for us. I mean, if we're getting protein, it's going to help us grow. It's kind of like the nitrogen. And as long as we're getting like calories and stuff like that will give us energy, then, you know, that's sort of like the potassium and the phosphate for the plants. We can survive off of that. But if we're leaving out essential vitamins, essential minerals, all of that stuff that comes in food, then our body's not going to be at peak performance because we're leaving out essential things that our body still needs. Same with the plants. If those micro ingredients are not in that soil, then they're not going to be able to perform at their peak. So you definitely want to look at those and make sure that you've got everything that you need there. All right, moving on down this chart, you're going to see something that is the cation levels. That is something that a lot of people will overlook, but is very important. It's going to tell you how well your soil can hold those nutrients. The higher the number, the better suited for holding in nutrients and moisture and all of that. So you can see ours is at like a 19.5 almost. That is really good, especially here in South Carolina. Your native soils and stuff are not going to be anywhere close to that. In South Carolina, we typically are down below 10. Now, this is on a 1 to 100 scale. So you don't have to be like super high to be good. That 19 is really good. I was very impressed with that. Talked to one of my buddies who does lawn treatments and stuff, understands this a lot better, and he was blown away. He actually wanted to know where I got that soil sample from because he's like, that's unheard of. That doesn't exist in South Carolina. The reason ours is so high is because we've been trying to build that soil and work on our garden soil for the last 5 years. So there's a lot of organic matter in there, and that's what's going to get that number up. So in something like a garden where you're wanting those nutrients to be able to be stored in the soil and readily available, you want that cation number to be fairly high. Again, 19 is considered high enough to be really good. So I was very pleased with that. And then obviously your pH level. Our pH is a little on the low side for a garden, which means acidic, but it's not outside the range. It's still in a good range. So I'm happy with that. 7 is neutral. So ideally you want your garden in kind of a 6.5 to 7 range if it's just not crop specific. Now, crops are gonna be fine. If you start getting into the 6, then it starts to get a little bit more iffy for some of your crops. So you definitely wanna keep it more in that 6.5 range if you can get it there. The one thing that I was actually pleasantly surprised at on this list is our calcium level. Now, if you've been gardening for long or you've looked into it, you know that blossom end rot can be a big issue, and that is normally caused from calcium deficient soils. Very happy to see that we do not have a calcium deficiency in our soil and that we don't have to worry about that. We have fought it in the years past and we've done some things to try to get that calcium level back up. We were able to be successful in that. So those are the things that you really want to look for. That's kind of a quick breakdown of what you're going to see on a soil results chart. If you got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer it. I am not an expert at this by any means. I do feel like I have maybe a little bit better understanding than just the average homeowner or average gardener, only because I'm in the landscape business. Thank you guys for joining me. Hope you learned something from this. Hope it was helpful. Give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful. We'll catch you next time. Until then, have a great week and be blessed.